effectively a warning to Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn, saying that he risks repeating the mistakes of Tony Blair. And no, in case you were wondering, that's not by Corbyn being about to invade Iraq. What he's referring to is over-promising and under-delivering. What he suggests is that with Corbyn adopting so many populist policies, things that sound great to young voters but may not necessarily be deliverable, he's worried that those who vote in a Corbyn Parliament, perhaps a Corbyn government in any foreseeable general election, will end up facing massive disappointment that he then describes as fury, if indeed they believe Corbyn's promises and he's unable to deliver. He's talking about things like scrapping tuition fees. He's talking about things like free childcare. He's talking about building up an expectation that Corbyn is indeed more pro-European Union than his policies indicate. And so the millennials and the younger voters who are flocking to Corbyn's Labour Party are in danger of believing that they're supporting somebody or something that isn't exactly aligned with their own views on certain policies and other issues that he isn't necessarily going to be able to deliver. And so Chuka has issued this warning, and it comes amidst a bit of a scandal at the Labour Party, and that is that Corbynistas and Momentum have secured their, let's just say, foothold in Corbyn's Labour Party. They've managed to implement certain policies that guarantee that the hard left of the party remain in control. And so it could well be that the quote-unquote moderates in the Labour Party are upset, and that could explain Chuka Umuna's intervention, or it could well be that they are genuinely concerned that he's promising things they don't think he's going to deliver. Now, believe it or not, none of the shadow front benchers who are, apart from the triumvirate, Emily Thornberry, Diane Abbott and Jeremy Corbyn, were listed as speakers at the Labour conference. London's Mayor Sadiq Khan had to fight to get a slot because they weren't even going to let him speak at their own. He's the senior most elected Labour politician, and they weren't going to give him a speaking slot. Poor old Chuka, he's nowhere near the speaking agenda. They've said, the official, Corbynista Labour Party have said, we want to give the grassroots an opportunity to speak. We want to hear from the grassroots. Now, that's code word for momentum. In other words, momentum speakers and pro-Corbyn speakers are filling up the conference agenda with speeches, and the Corbynistas weren't even going to allow the Mayor of London to give a speak and address party conference. And that would have been politically one step too far. So they've conceded. They've given him a bit of a slot to speak. But many of the other shadow front benchers don't have any time on the podium. So it could well be that Chuka's intervention here is simply because he's upset at the state of affairs, or it could be a genuine thing. Are Labour in danger of over-promising and under-delivering? That's the question. 0345 6060 973 is the number to call to give us the answer to that question. Are you a Corbyn supporter? Tell me why you think he can deliver. And then there's this other curious question, and that is that one of the biggest topics of the day, of the hour, of indeed the year, and of the generation that we find ourselves in is indisputably Brexit. Now, you've got a party that's lining itself up to be a party of government. According to certain polls at the moment, Corbyn is more popular than Theresa May. I mean, I described on my show, I think, on Saturday. Yeah, it was Saturday, yesterday. Whew, it's been a long time since then, folks. It's a long time in politics. So, Theresa May, I described on my show yesterday as perhaps the worst Prime Minister in living memory. Some of you rightly corrected me online and said, what about Gordon Brown? But still, I think that because of circumstance, and I admit this isn't anything that came from internally and within him, but because of circumstance, that circumstance being Brexit, of course, Theresa May is performing worse than even Gordon Brown. Now, if you've got potentially the worst Prime Minister in living memory, and she calls a general election, and Labour under Corbyn admittedly do better than we all thought they would, but didn't seize the election. And according to Corbynistas and Momentum, you've got the best Labour leader in a generation. then the logic, does it not, follows. Why couldn't the best Labour leader in a generation beat the worst Conservative leader in living memory? Because even if you were to consider Gordon Brown worse than Theresa May, he was also Labour. So my statement stands. If the worst Conservative leader in my living memory is currently the Prime Minister, why couldn't, according to Momentum, the best Labour leader beat her in an election, not just inflict upon her a wound that admittedly none of us predicted he would? But surely he should have gone further. And so when you look at it through that lens, and you've got the leadership of Corbyn coming under the microscope by people like Chuka Umunna in his own party, another question poses itself. And that is, where does Corbyn stand and his leadership stand on Brexit? Because as I was saying, if you've got one of the most important questions of our generation, and Labour and Corbyn have decided to skirt the question of Brexit. It is simply not addressed in the Labour Party conference. Almost as if they don't want to talk about it, folks. Almost as if they don't want to talk about it. And one wonders why. Why is Corbyn's Labour Party not speaking about Brexit? Shouldn't they be more focused on Brexit? Could you vote for a Labour without being sure where they stand on Brexit? Are you one of Corbyn's many young supporters? One of those that were at Glastonbury singing, "Oh, Jeremy Corbyn"? Are you one of those? And if you are, surely you are pro Britain's membership in the European Union. Surely, like me, you are a Remainer. And if you are you not aware that the man you are so eagerly singing ballads to is effectively and has always been pro-Brexit? To the extent that even before he was Labour leader, he sided with the Tories to back the referendum motion. Corbyn's voting record up until the Brexit referendum has always been anti-EU. And then recently, just today, he has ruled out, today or yesterday, he's ruled out our continued membership of the single market because, according to him, that would prevent the United Kingdom from adopting its own economic policies in the interests of workers in this country. And so you've got this other big, huge challenge, this looming problem. On the one hand, Chuka's intervention states that Labour are in danger of over-promising and under-delivering, and thereby unleashing fury against them by the voters who feel let down. But then you've got this other problem. There are voters who don't even fully comprehend, perhaps, that Corbyn is effectively a pro-Brexit leader. And what do you think of that? 0345 60 973 is the number to call. And do you think things like tuition fee reform, in Corbyn's mind, scrapping tuition fees entirely, is an achievable thing, considering the challenges of Brexit and some of the prioritisation that any leader in this country is going to have to embark on to navigate this country successfully through a tectonic plate shift, and that is our exit from the European Union? So in this context and in this climate, is it even realistic to promise scrapping tuition fees and to reintroduce free universal education? Where will that money come from? And what about free childcare? So this is everything that Chuka Umunna has said. It's an intervention he's made. Do you take that intervention on face value? Because indeed, if you were a Corbyn supporter, a Momentum backer, you may well be saying this is all sour grapes. It's sour grapes because none of these were given, none of the front benchers, shadow front benchers who are not Corbynistas, were given a platform to speak at the Labour Party conference. And as I was saying, even the London Mayor, Sadiq Khan, had to protest, and his team had to effectively force a slot in the Labour Party conference to give him a couple of minutes to speak, because they weren't even going to let him speak, because he, according to them, isn't left-wing enough for Momentum. Clearly he's not, even though actually is interesting is that he nominated Corbyn originally for this leadership contest. Probably regrets it a lot now. But nevertheless, Sadiq Khan did originally nominate Corbyn, but he's now considered on at least on the right of the left, if not called an outright right-winger by those on the hard left, who, for them, anyone who doesn't agree with them is a right-winger. So that's where we stand with the Labour Party. You may clearly, I mean, you're sensing my scepticism, and that's only because I'm not that far left-wing as Comrade Stalin was. But, however, I do concede one thing, and I've always said it on my radio show, and that is that there is a place I think, in our country for a left-wing party, a centrist party, and a right-wing party. I, for one, am glad that the battle lines are being drawn and that you can see what clearly is a left-wing party, what clearly is a centrist party, appalling abysmally, may I add, and what clearly is a right-wing party, because at least then voters know what they're voting for. 10 to 5 years ago, everything sounded the same, looked the same, wore the same clothes, had the same grey, dull hair, and looked to them, and nobody really knew what anyone stood apart from the others on. It was all the same thing and more of the same. And so at least now you've got a left-wing Labour Party, a right-wing Conservative Party, and yes, admittedly, appalling abysmally, a centrist Liberal Party. However, having conceded that, clearly I'm not of the hard left, and so naturally I will criticise it. But that doesn't mean I don't think it should exist. I don't think, I'm not saying that the socialist policies shouldn't be there. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is, are they realistic? I'm scrutinising them, and I'm wondering who, if anyone, can adopt them wholeheartedly. Because to me, it doesn't make sense. 0345 60 60973 is the number to call. Are Labour in danger of over-promising and under-delivering? You're listening to Maajid Nawaz here on LBC. Sitting in for Ian Collins, the time now is 10:15.
Last time on the Nigel Farage Show.
Joining me now is Jacob Rees-Mogg. Haven't I a right to feel pretty upset when Mrs May stood at the election telling me Brexit means Brexit, and now it's been kicked into the long grass for who knows how long?
I don't fully endorse what you're saying. I have my concerns, make no bones about that.
5 days of Farage, Monday to Thursday evenings from 7, and now Sunday mornings from 10. The Nigel Farage Show, only on LBC.
Brilliant, I've finally quit.
I feel like I've got my life back. I felt much happier.
It's an amazing feeling when you stop smoking. Experience it for yourself with help from NHS Smoke Free. Our range of support tools, which includes face-to-face guidance from advisors, helps maximise your chances of success. Go online now and search for Smoke Free.
When you're trying to find the perfect cruise for you, Virgin Holidays knows what's what. For instance, if you like to feel the wind in your hair, here at the Royal Caribbean, they have a zipline experience at precisely 9 stories high.
This is the perfect altitude for you to feel the adrenaline rush through your body and still be able to enjoy the amazing views of the Caribbean.
We know what makes a cruise. If you want to know more, visit your nearest Virgin Holidays store. Virgin Holidays. Seize the holiday. ATOL protected.
Award-winning Howarth Homes is delighted to announce the forthcoming release of their latest luxury development, Teddington Gate. A secure private development of just 35 individually designed and highly specified 1- and 2-bedroom apartments, minutes from both High Street and Mainline Station. Teddington Gate represents a rare opportunity to buy a fabulous new home, a short stroll from stunning Royal Bushy Park. Prices starting at just $359,995. Register now for our sales event on the 29th and 30th of September by visiting teddingtongate.com.
New Sky Sports is here. So now all our Sky TV customers can get our brand new channel dedicated to the Premier League for £18 a month. With 126 live games and a new weeknight debate show. Exciting, eh, Gary? If you don't have Sky TV, bundles start from £22 a month. Search New Sky Sports today to get our new Premier League channel. Cancellation requires 31 days notice. New Sky TV customers, £20 setup fee, 18-month contract.
Jack here has got Kev on the phone. As a PlusNet customer, he has lots of friendly people that have his back. Say hi, Kev.
Hi, Kev. Hi?
He can call PlusNet any day of the week. They've already helped him pick a package, upgrade a package, check bills, move home, give him matrix, ordered SIMs, transferred numbers, added buttons, checked his connection speed. And Julie here even helped him settle on Mallorca for his next family holiday.
Don't forget the factor 30.
PlusNet has lots of friendly staff that just can't help but help. It's probably why they've bagged Uswitch as Best Provider for Customer Service Award. PlusNet will do you proud.
At Carpetright, there's up to 50% off for choice of floors and beds, plus free credit and nothing to pay for 6 months. Ends Tuesday, 8 p.m. Representative 0% APR minimum spend applies.
Your journey is always more pleasurable with Aeroflot Russian Airlines. Our young fleet flies to an enormous range of destinations. Come and experience true hospitality delivered by our expert cabin crew and pilots, made even better by the choice of exquisite cuisine served on board. Then just sit back, relax, and enjoy the comfort of our state-of-the-art aircraft. You'll find you've enjoyed yourself before you've even landed. Fly Aeroflot.
This This is LBC with Maajid Nawaz. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850.
Good evening, it's Maajid Nawaz here on LBC, leading Britain's conversation, sitting in all week, I may add, for Ian Collins. So you're going to hear me in the evenings this week, and then I will be resuming my regular weekend show from Saturdays and Sundays. Now, because this is not my regular slot, I'm going to ask you to pick up the phone and welcome me. 0345 6060 973 is the number to call to speak to me about whether you think Labour is in danger of over-promising and under-delivering. That's according to Chuka Umuna, another, shadow frontbencher, I believe, of the Labour Party, and he's critical. He's shadow business, by the way. He's critical of his leader, his party leader, Corbyn. Now, is it a case of sour grapes? Because the quote-unquote moderates in the Labour Party weren't given platforms to speak at the party conference, or is there some substance to it? I think there is, but you may disagree. 0345 6060 973 is the number to call. We're going to go to Adrian, who's on the line from Lewisham. Tell us what you think, Adrian.
Yeah, of course he's over-promising. All politicians do, of course.
Yeah.
But in particular, if you pick out the uni fees, he's really over-promising. And what I think is rather disappointing is when he fails, it will be the working class that he fails and not the middle class.
Now, Adrian, all politicians do overpromise, but in the case of a party that believes more so in the solution being more spending rather than less, that's clearly not a controversial statement to make about Corbyn's Labour Party. Is the danger even more there ever present that this particular party could overpromise because they happen to have a bias towards spending anyway?
Yeah, the danger is a lot more. You've just seen our credit rating go down over the last couple of weeks.
That's on Moody's, yeah?
One of the big credit, and it will go down further.
Yeah.
Now, right now, it's only gone down a little bit, so they're saying it isn't really affecting our cost of borrowing. But in fact, well, if we release very high public spending, unless it's backed up by taxes, people who leave, by the way, if the taxes are too high, unless it's backed up by huge taxes, then what will happen is our cost of debt will go up, and that means it'll be spending tens of billions of pounds more every year just to service the debt, just to pay the interest on the debt, and therefore we'll all be worse off. And again, in the case of universities, if we don't pay fees, they'll have less money, they'll run less courses, they'll be able to have less students. And who do you think is going to really be good at getting their kids into unis in that situation?
Now,
Will it be the working class?
What you're referring to, Adrian, is this rating called Moody's, which I believe now the United Kingdom is on AA2, which is a slight, it's a notch down from where we were. And so you're saying that with that falling at the moment, you're saying it's not going to affect it. You're saying if it falls further, then it will raise the cost of us borrowing money.
Yep, and bearing in mind we're already well over $1 trillion in debt. You only have to add 1% or 0.5% to $1 trillion, and you've got tens of billions of pounds extra just to pay interest to somebody else who's very rich, taking the money away from people in the UK who are not so rich.
So, Adrian, what are your political biases? Are you? I imagine you're not. You don't sound like a Corbyn supporter, but are you even a Labour supporter? Or are you something else entirely?
I've voted for different parties at different times in my life. But, what I can say is nearly every time I voted against my own wallet. And I know not many people in the UK do that, but I voted against my own pocket. So I call myself centrist. What I'm interested in, I think, is a successful business sector with a good safety net for the people that don't quite make it.
All right, Adrian. Well, thank you for calling in. That's Adrian there from Lewisham. Going to read a couple of texts and tweets before we go to another call. And that is that Graham from Bradford. And thank you, Graham, for putting a name in your text. I ask everybody who texts in, 84850 is the number to text to give us your views on text. Please put your names in, because obviously we're not storing all your phone numbers. And so how would we know your names? So then if you write your names, I can credit you for the text. So Graham has done precisely that. He said, Graham from Bradford. He says, hi, Maajid, I watched the Labour conference today and it was like the SWP, Socialist Workers' Party. He says it was like an SWP rally. The centre-left is done for. Now, what Graham's referring to, and I think Graham is correct in essence there in his text and what he said, is that some reforms have been brought in at the party conference, and they've dropped the stipulation for a proposed party leader requiring 15% of the vote of the Labour Party to 10% of, I think it's MPs, parliamentary MPs, but I'm going to double check that for you, but it's definitely down from 15 to 10%. What that means is it makes McDonnell's ascension to succeed Corbyn easier, and what that effectively means, it's easier for the hard left to maintain control over Corbyn's Labour Party if Corbyn were to step down, or indeed if his leadership were to be challenged. So just checking on that figure for you, it says, the number of MPs required to nominate a leadership candidate has dropped from 15% to 10%. Now that in itself was a compromise. It's called the McDonnell Amendment. It was meant to be even lower, but they compromised and arrived at 10%. But that certainly does make it easier for John McDonnell, who's Corbyn's much feared right-hand man, to get on the ballot of the wider party membership to succeed him. And so it makes it easier for the Corbynistas to get to maintain a grip in the Corbyn part, in Corbyn's Labour. And of course, Graham's text is accurate. It makes it harder for, again, quote-unquote, moderates like Chukwuemeka to get anywhere and to seize power, or the former Blairites and the former Brown allies to get back in power in the Labour Party. We're going to go to Chris, who's on the line from my hometown, Southend-on-Sea. Tell us what you think, Chris. Welcome.
I didn't know you were a South Indian, Maajid.
Born in Rochford Hospital, Chris. Look at that.
Brilliant.
Yeah, parents still live there and all that.
Brilliant. I was just saying, the thing is, I mean, I agree with the other chap that was on earlier. I think most politicians overpromise and under-deliver. I mean, Theresa May, well, I mean, she was meant to, what was it now? She was meant to have representatives of workers on company boards, and she's backtracked on that. I mean, if you look at Sadiq Khan, even, he promised us there wouldn't be a rise in rail fares, and he's backtracked on that as well. Of course, I do admire Sadiq for taking on Uber, so I'll give him full credit for that, by the way.
Are there some promises that are worse to break than others? So, I'm thinking of Nick Clegg's tuition fees debacle. Are some promises, if you break them, if I say I'm not going to raise tax and I raise tax by 0.1%, people kind of expect me to raise a tax, and it's like, okay, fine, I've got to pay another penny a year. But if I say something like, I promise not to scrap tuition fees, or in Corbyn's case, I promise to scrap tuition fees, and then he doesn't deliver on that, are some promises, do they hurt the heart more so than others?
Yeah, I see what you mean, Maajid. I mean, if you look at the whole tuition fee thing, I mean, I think it's a bit of a farcical, really, because the tuition fees as there are, on current predictions, only about a third of students are going to fully pay off their student debt. Yeah. Most of them probably will never pay it off, or perhaps even only pay it off by about 30%. So the way I said, you might as well make the free. I mean, if you look at most prosperous European countries, especially in Scandinavia, France and Germany, lots of countries do give free tuition. But there is a catch to that, and this is what Corbyn's got to say. The catch is you'd have to significantly reduce the amount of people going to university. I mean, I just thought Tony Blair's target of getting 50% of young people in higher education was just nonsense. It was not workable. It's debated at a degree, and I don't even think 50% of young people are worthy of going to university. So I think that was a false promise.
But Chris, didn't Corbyn back away from this promise recently?
I've not been following it really, but as far as I'm aware, he did. Yes, I mean, he did say that he wouldn't wipe off. As far as I'm aware, Maajid, he said he wouldn't wipe off previous debt. In other words, students had previously gone to university, so that they would still have to pay their debt, I imagine.
Yeah. That's right. That's what he backed off from. Yeah, he said he would deal with it, and then that was before the election. Then after the election, he said deal with it means look into it, but not make a promise about actually dealing with it.
Well, from my perspective, I mean, I'm still a Labour supporter. I did vote for Corbyn. I voted for Andy Byrne as leader, but I still take the view. Look, we've got to get behind him. I mean, he's our leader, and I certainly would prefer him over the Tories, who just seem to want to look after the elite.
Yeah. Let me give you an example, Chris, of why I'm so sceptical about the hard left's ability to show any quarter to the quote-unquote moderates, because this is the mindset we're up against. I've got a tweet here. I'm going to read it out to you, and you can tell me what you think of it. It's by the Ultimate Outlaw on Twitter. Perhaps the name should also give us an early indication as to what exactly we're going to expect, and he's got a green man as his profile picture. But he says, I find it funny how Maajid Nawaz is so interested in pointing out Jeremy Corbyn's faults on LBC. Is this a Tory radio propaganda station? And it's a mindset that if you're critical of Corbyn, you're with the Tories.
Well, to me, people like that are obviously narrow-minded, Maajid. I mean, personally, I think most of the population are not on the hard left and are not on the hard right. For most people, they're some in the middle. There's bits of the right and bits of the left. Yeah. I mean, honestly, if you're totally left-wing or totally right-wing and everything, then quite frankly, you're narrow-minded. I mean,
well, you're probably a wingnut then, aren't you? That's what it makes you. If you're too far left or too far right, you're a wingnut. Makes you one of the Looney Tunes.
Oh, it does. And I think if you've got to bear in mind as well, Twitter, it does sometimes give a platform to people with, shall we say, extremist views. I mean, I think, being critical of Corbyn's policy, I mean, for starters, I don't want us to leave NATO. That's one policy that I disagree with Corbyn on. Yeah. Railways, I mean, personally, I'd love it if they were taken back in state control, personally, because it's not exactly worked out privatisation, so we might as well have it on a state control. But I think the key thing with Corbyn is, as long as he's straight with the tax people are going to pay, then that's fine. I mean, some of the most prosperous countries in the world, Maajid, pay a lot in tax, and they don't have a problem with it. We've got to say to people, look, if you want better public services, then you've got to pay for it. But our politicians don't have the guts to say that.
Yeah, all right. Chris, it's been a pleasure speaking to you, especially because you're from my hometown Southend-on-Sea in Essex. That's an Essex boy there, fellow Essex boy Chris calling us. You're listening to Maajid Nawaz here on LBC, sitting in for Ian Collins. The time now at 10:30 is time for the news headlines with Andy Ivey.
Exit polls in Germany put Angela Merkel on course for a fourth term as Chancellor, but in a blow to her, the anti-immigration party Alternative for Germany will get its first ever seats in Parliament. Labour divisions over Europe have erupted after conference delegates agreed not to push the issue of Brexit to a vote. It means Jeremy Corbyn avoids a divisive clash over the party's policy on the issue at this week's conference in Brighton. At least 100 American football players have knelt during the US national anthem before NFL games in a protest against the treatment of black people by police. It's after President Trump suggested that team owners